The cassette recorder was already running when Detective Ilara Voss pressed her palms flat against the steel table and leaned forward. She checked her wristwatch, a plain steel thing she touched the way some people touch rosaries, and studied the man across from her. He hadn't moved. Not once in 3 hours. The precinct's security footage would later confirm this. The suspect sat with his hands folded, his eyes open, his breathing so shallow that the desk sergeant had checked the monitor twice to make sure the feed wasn't frozen. He had walked in at dusk. No identification, no demands. He told the intake officer he wanted to confess to a murder. When they asked for the victim's name, he gave one. When they searched every database available, nothing came back. No missing person report. No body. No record that anyone by that name had ever existed. Ilara shouldn't have taken the case. It wasn't assigned to her. But she heard the name the suspect gave. A name that matched a scrawl in the margins of a cold case file she'd kept locked in her bottom drawer for 18 months. A file no one had asked her to reopen. A file she couldn't stop reopening. She sat down across from him in interview room B and pressed record on the wall-mounted cassette unit, though it was already recording. 2 micro-cassettes turned in tandem. The fluorescent tube overhead hummed at a frequency that made her back teeth ache. Ilara asked him how he knew the name. The suspect tilted his head, the first movement he'd made, and said, "You already know how." Behind the one-way mirror, Marcus Harlan set down his pen. He'd been Ilara's partner for 6 years. He knew her tells, the way she pressed her thumbnails into the pad of her index finger when something landed. She was doing it now. The suspect began to describe a room, bare walls, a window facing east, a wooden chair with a cracked left armrest. Ilara's pen stopped moving. These were details from her cold case, details that had never been entered into any system, never spoken aloud in any briefing, details she had written in her own hand, in a notebook she kept at home. She asked him where he'd gotten this information. He said, "From the same place you're going." Marcus leaned closer to the glass. The coffee beside him had gone cold hours ago. Through the mirror, he watched Ilara's expression shift into something he'd never seen cross her face before. Not fear, exactly. Recognition. The interview continued for another 40 minutes. The cassette reels turned. The suspect described events with the calm precision of someone reading from a transcript, except the events he described hadn't happened. Not yet. He spoke about a detective who would lock a door, a light that would change frequency, a watch that would stop 4 minutes before it should have. Ilara stood. She crossed to the door and knocked twice, the signal she and Marcus used when she needed the observation room cleared. Marcus hesitated. Through the glass, he watched her standing at the door, one hand on the frame near the old dent in the drywall. She didn't look at the mirror. She looked at the floor. Marcus left to get coffee. It was the most ordinary decision he'd ever made, and it would define the rest of his career. The hallway stretched out under its buzzing fluorescent panels. His footsteps echoed longer than they should have. He was gone for 7 minutes. When he returned, the observation room was exactly as he'd left it. Legal pad, cold coffee, his pen uncapped. But through the glass, interview room B was empty. Both chairs pushed in. The table bare except for one object, Ilara's steel wristwatch, placed face up in the exact center. Its hands read 11:07. The precinct clock behind Marcus read 11:03. The door to interview room B was still locked from the inside. Captain Diane Okafor arrived within the hour. She ordered the door forced. The room held no one. No suspect. no detective. The fluorescent tube overhead had burned out, though facilities confirmed it had been replaced that same morning. The dent near the doorframe was deeper now. Fresh plaster dust lay on the linoleum, the impact clearly made from inside the room after the lock had been engaged. One cassette was recovered from the wall-mounted unit. The second cassette, the one in the right-hand bay, was gone. No one could explain how it had been removed without pressing the mechanical eject button, which Marcus confirmed was still in the locked position. The recovered tape was sent to the state crime lab. The first 46 minutes contained exactly what you'd expect. Ilara's questions, the suspect's answers, the hum of the fluorescent tube. But the final 4 minutes held something else entirely. A sound the lead audio technician described as rhythmic, almost vocal, but not human. 3 separate analyses failed to classify it. It matched no known language, no animal vocalization, no mechanical source in the building. Marcus returned to Ilara's desk the following morning. He stood there in the amber light of her cracked desk lamp and looked at what she'd left behind. The case folders, the red string on the corkboard. He turned over the framed photograph she always kept face down and went still. The girl in the photo matched the suspect's described victim precisely, but there was no missing person report for her either. She existed only here, in this frame, on this desk. He pulled the red string photos from the corkboard one by one. Every photograph showed the same location, a structure he didn't recognize, photographed across what appeared to be decades. Different film stocks, different seasons, but the same building. He searched for it. Every database, every mapping service, every archive. The location does not appear on any map. Captain Okafor closed the case 14 months later. The file summary reads, Detective Ilara Voss, whereabouts unknown. No evidence of foul play. No evidence of voluntary departure. No evidence of any kind. The interview room has been reassigned. The cassette sits in an evidence locker, shelf 9, bay 14. No one has requested to listen to it again. The wristwatch remains in its evidence bag, hands frozen at 11:07, 4 minutes ahead of a moment that, by every official record, never arrived.